Tight, very tight. There are very few properties that are what we would deem affordable housing.
Homelessness is much more of a reality for a lot of people than it ever used to be.
I think it's fair to say that it is a crisis situation in the Hobart rental market.
Tasmania has been plagued for years by a housing and homelessness crisis. Hobart is at the epicentre, estimated to have more than half of the state's homeless.
Anywhere sleeping rough is difficult, so you're either in a tent, you're in a swag, you might have blankets, you might have nothing. On top of that, if you're homeless, there's lots of other issues.
A growing number of people are sleeping rough and shelters have been forced to turn people away. It prompted the Salvation Army and Hobart City Mission to band together to create a safe night space to provide emergency relief.
We hit capacity every night. Wow. So we opened just before Christmas, had a bit of a soft opening, but probably by February we were hitting capacity every night.
Property demand has exploded in recent years, driven by an influx of people migrating to the state, as well as investors snapping up their piece of paradise. Add in the rise in popularity of short-stay accommodation, pulling places from the rental pool, and property prices have continued to go up and up and up.
Hobart growth performance in the dwelling market has been really extraordinary. Over the past year, dwelling values were up 5%. And in the past 5 years, the Hobart dwelling market has actually outperformed Sydney and Melbourne markets as well.
It's a similar story across the state, Launceston topping the nation's list for capital growth in regional markets. In the year to January, Launceston's house prices rose 7.1%, while units increased by a staggering 13.6%.
And that's really a function of demand rippling out as property in Hobart becomes increasingly unavailable.
In a state where 40% of people earn less than the national average income, this is a big problem. It's inspection time at this 3-bedroom house in Berrydale in Hobart's north. And for this couple, that means hoping to finally secure a place to call home after 2 months of searching.
There's not enough housing, I think, in the lower sector of the market, and that's why we're seeing quite a lot of people turn up to open homes in the price bracket, say up to $450 per week.
It's a vicious cycle, as many renters struggle to put an affordable roof over their heads. Scores more are getting left behind, Tasmania's public housing waiting list stretching into the thousands.
If there was more public housing, there'd be less pressure on rents in the lower sector.
Last year, the federal government agreed to wipe Tasmania's $157 million historical public housing debt in a deal with Senator Jackie Lambie. The proviso, the $15 million saved annually, must be spent on housing and homelessness services. As State Parliament resumed this month, the Premier announced a $22 million injection to build more social housing over the next 3 years. Then the coronavirus pandemic hit. The full impact is unclear, but as the economy takes a hammering, there are fears more people will be forced into homelessness. Many charities like Hobart City Mission will become increasingly vital.
It's a case of looking how can the programs work together to try and support each other.
John Stubley is the CEO of Hobart City Mission. He's a person who's dealing very much with the front line of this and lots of other issues here. And look, we don't want to be sad sack about Hobart, beautiful part of Australia, but these are things that are happening right now. Thank you very much for joining us. I always feel so rude not shaking people's hands, but this is where we are now. This is the world. Do you think it's getting worse, the homelessness crisis?
It certainly is in Hobart. I think last year, for the first time, we actually saw homeless people on the street of Hobart. We hadn't seen that before. And going into winter last year, it was a real shock to the Hobart community to see people on street corners begging or sleeping in shop fronts. We had literally not seen that before in Hobart. I think it was there, but it was more hidden. But what we've seen in the last year is it's come out from the shadows. And it's really in our face. And as Tasmanians, we don't like it. We've not seen it before, we're not used to it, and we're not used to not doing something about it. So Tasmanians are saying, what can we do to help? How do we fix this? Even now we're getting people ringing us every day saying, you know, you guys are obviously going to be under pressure. What can we do to help you?
Right.
And that is the Tasmanian way. It's the way we operate.
It's that thing where you can feel that the weeks and months ahead, there's going to be changes, stresses, strains, all the rest of it here. I just can't help but think that, and I hate the term have a conversation, but I think that we're going to have a conversation with Australia's, I think there's definitely more than 1.6 million, but those people that are the property investors, the people who have more than one place, the people who are claiming things like negative gearing, that when there's going to be a lot of people who are casual workers who are they're going to get a job again, but they're going to lose it for this next little while.
That's right.
Do you think there's going to be a moment where we're going to have to say, look, just don't charge rent this month?
And I think there needs to be some of that as people are able to do it. But the flip side of that story is that investor, that landlord, may not actually have the capacity to do that.
Of course.
They might need the rent to pay their mortgage repayments. To me, that then flows back up the tree to the banks and saying to the banks, you've got the capacity to go easy. If you go easy on property owners, they can then go easy on their tenants. But absolutely, I think those are the sorts of things as a country we need to be looking at, that anyone who can give a bit is going to have to give a bit. What I like about what's happening, if there is anything to like, is that I think it's going to shift our focus away from money. We are money focused, we're money driven. This is making us realise that there's something a whole lot more important happening here, and that's the guys you were talking to before. It's about looking after each other, it's about caring for each other, keeping an eye out. If nothing else comes out of this, I'd like to think that we come out with a changed set of values of what's important, and it will be people who can do a bit of heavy lifting to help others doing just that.
Yeah, it's this thing where, you know, nobody's talking about us, you know, having some grand revolution to some sort of, you know, flat socialist communist future. But it's about that thing about saying that compassion. What I think is going to be interesting about the next little while, look, tough as it's going to be, is that previous generations have all had their challenge. The challenge for this generation is not just to think that you're generous, but you're going to have to show it. Not just to think that you're compassionate, you're going to have to show it. Not just to think that we can do that, you're going to have to show it. And I think most people are going to pass that test. But one of the many reasons to talk to you tonight was the very good people of Harvey Norman have chosen your good self along with other organisations to raise money in the silent auction that was held today over the past few days in the store. And I just want to say well done to everyone at Harvey Norman in Hobart and in wider parts here of Tasmania. You know that this is one of their favourite places in the country, and they really have stepped up. Before I get to the number that is there, tell me about what $5,000, what $10,000, what money does for people like yourself.
First thing that comes to mind, particularly at the moment, is emergency assistance. So we support over 2,000 people a year who come to our front door who literally don't have any food to eat and don't have any money. What we're doing at the moment is looking to increase those revenue streams to enable us to offer more emergency assistance, because the very people we're talking about, the casual employees who a month ago, 3 months ago, thought their job was secure and their cash flow was fine, are suddenly going to find they've got no food on the table. And there's nothing more fundamental than not being able to feed yourself. So we've been supporting the people of southern Tasmania for 170 years. And this is the time where we have to step up and say, now is the time for us to dig deep into our coffers and give it back into the community, because the community's going to need it. So the $5,000 that we might get from this is just fantastic. If it's more than that, that'll be even better. I hope.
I'll get to a number exactly. And it's this thing where, look, one of the greatest lessons that I've learned hosting our town for the past year and a bit, one of the best things about working with Harvey Norman, and be it the CWA in Townsville, be it with people like yourself, and I should mention as well, Anglicare Tasmania, Hobart Women's Shelter are also going to be in recipient here, is that a lot of people at home might be genuinely surprised how far a small amount of money can go, where the $50 fuel card is the difference between whether you interact with the town or not.
Yep.
The couple of $100 is the difference about whether you're eating or not. So I'm pleased to say the people of Hobart have come up with $22,458. It'll be going between all three of you, and it is you know, a good amount of money, because the whole point is that it's not just about roll in 2 hours and bugger off. It's about making sure that there's a little tail that goes. Yep. So all the best with what you can do.
Thanks, and thanks to Harvey Norman. That's fantastic.
Yeah,
every bit helps.
This is it, mate. They've been very good people. And look, if anyone is watching us at home and wants to donate and get in touch with Hobart City Mission, obviously get in the Google machine. But how else do they get there?
They can go to our website, ring our office. They'll find the numbers on our website, Facebook page. One thing I'd like to say,
please,
if Woolworths can actually help us get some food, that'd be great, because we feed the homeless with food packs. They've stopped providing bulk orders. We cannot get non-perishable food at the moment to give to the homeless. So we need to talk to Woolworths.
I know a couple of people behind the scenes. We're going to chat in the next break, all right? We will take a great break. Can we do this? I've got to get closer, but there we go. Social bloody distancing. All right, thank you very much. Thanks, I do appreciate it. Social distancing is about physicality, not about emotional connection.